Welcome to Planning Phase Syndicate. Thank you so much for joining us for this amazing deck tech for Jabba Aggression. Yes, we're doing Jabba Aggression, and you know, it's funny. I've watched a lot of deck tech videos lately, and it's like one of those things where like people want to do all the popular decks, all these things, and I'm saying is, hey, can we have a little bit of fun? And can we just possibly do a Jabba deck? I've been having so much fun with this Jabba. A little bit special to me because I have an actual showcase, so I kind of want to play it a little bit more probably than other people do. But I found Jabba to be so much fun in this set, and I really wanted to bring you the Jabba deck tech and kind of what I've been running and having decent amount of success with against a lot of other decks. So here we go. Here is my Jabba Red, the version of it that I've been running. And yes, it like this thing. Sometimes this feels like this thing changes daily. But for the most part, this is where I feel like I've started to nail down a deck that seems to do pretty well. There is a couple of things that we'll get to that we could talk about that is, questionable that you could possibly change in and out. For example, resupplies. I'm only running 2 of them, and I'm running 2 price on your heads. You could kind of like play with it. You don't have to run the 2 resupplies. You can run 3, 1 more price on your head instead of another resupply. There's a lot of different things that you can do with it. But this is the deck that I've been finding has like really good success. And what I've been finding is like, I don't think it's quite there in terms of building a meta deck to win at a tournament. But this is something you could take to your locals, have fun with, get a couple of good games in. And like the best part is when you get to steal something with Jabba and then just kind of say, hey, you got to kill my unit or not to get your unit back. So here's where the deck is. So right now I'm running 2 Death Star Troopers, which is like essentially the Stormtrooper. That's a 1 cost 3/1. I'm running 3 Salacious Crumbs, not only because it is very thematic, but because they are very beneficial to be able to ping off damage, as well as help yourself heal, which is very important to this deck, especially when you're running against aggro. 2 Timely Interventions, 3 Force Choke, 2 price on your heads, 2 of the Kylo Sai Silencers to resupply, 3 Open Fire, 3 Phase 3 Dark Troopers, 3 Super Laser Techs, 3 Bounty Hunters, which is one of the most important cards, in this whole deck, and 2 Black Sun Enforcers, 2 of the Imperial Interceptors, 3 Jangos, which I'm very excited. I actually get to run Jango in this deck. It does work very well. There's a couple of weird kooky combinations that kind of work, but Jango in this deck is just so much fun. And he's a 4 cost 3/6 body, just so good. 3 Overwhelming Barrages, 3 Ruthless Raiders, 3 Balls, 2 of the Walkers, 2 Jabba's Rancors, 2 Relentless, and 2 Crate Dragons. Now, before we get too far into this deck, right, like one of the big things that I notice or that you could possibly notice is that I don't have any Devastators. You can run Devastators. I run them in my sideboard. They could be main decked. Again, this is kind of my version of how you can start playing around with it. I currently have a lot of stuff where I need a Relentless to help with control matchups, but it is something that could be subbed out. For my sideboard, I have 2 Scanning Officers, 2 of the Fang Fighters, 2 Traitoresses, 2 Pelp's Return, and 2 Devastators. Now, real quick on the sideboard, I have everything at 2 for a specific reason, because I don't know what the best sideboard is. Some of me thinks that the Devastators are great. Some of me really loves the Pelp's Return. I feel the Pelp's Return and the Overwhelming Barrage can be interchangeable in the aspect of what they can get you in terms of output. A Pelp's Return can grab you something that's been discarded, such as a Maul, and Maul can come in and swing in. He's 1 less, and then on top of being 1 less, he gets Overwhelm and Ambush, which is just so good for 6 cost. Traitoresses have not been very important, but can be clutch, especially if you're playing against something that's got lower units, lower cost units. It works very well playing against a specific space, Lurking TIE Phantom. Same way with the Fang Fighters, being able to kill some upgrades, plus give you a body in space. And Scanning Officers, the sideboard, I couldn't fit them in the main deck. You know me. You know my show. You watch the podcast. You know I love me some Scanning Officers. One of my favorite cards in this whole set. And I feel that, like, especially with Smuggle becoming more prominent, it's just so imperative that you almost need them in the main board. But for now, we're going to leave them in the sideboard and kind of just say, hey, we got a different plan. But you could sub out one of the units inside of the deck for that. Specifically, like the Death Star Trooper is an easy substitutable for these scanning officers as well. Why don't we move on and let's look at what our leader does. So our leader, Jabba, big body. He does two things. He captures the unit when he deploys, if you have another unit out, which is very important, by the way. If you don't have a unit out and you flip Jabba, I don't know what to tell you. You don't get to capture a unit. His other thing is he gets to action. He gets to give a bounty. So the next time you play, the next unit you play this phase after you kill that unit allows you to cost one less. He interacts with some of these other cards. We'll get to that in a few minutes. But really the big thing is Jabba can capture almost anything. And like, if you know me, you know I love me some Palpatine. I love to steal some units. Jabba does a very similar role where he's stealing your unit. You don't get to play it, but he is stealing your unit and he is taking it and saying, hey, you got to come get this if you want to be able to play it back. It does a couple of different things. In a later game against a Boba Yellow, you could take and steal a fire spray that comes out ready. Even if they kill your unit, so what? Like, it takes that readiness away, so it stalls their game plan for a turn. Being able to take a Devastator, an Avenger, or a Home 1, or a Crate Dragon is just so crucial. I have played against a Han Blue. They drop a Crate Dragon, think it's the end of the world. Jabba just pulls out and grabs the Crate Dragon and throws it underneath a bounty hunter, a reputable bunny hunter, and it's like, yeah, you get it back because you just got to kill this one unit, but it does stop them. It does allow you to play other cards. So then it allows you to play whatever cards you have 7 resources for, typically a Jabba's Rancor, and not take any damage for it. So it is Jabba can be a very key player. His other benefit is he gives that bounty for that +1. So if you're playing and you're not super worried about like aggro is the hardest matchup for this deck. But if you're playing against a mid-range or a control deck, you could just throw a bounty on one of their units, and then you could ambush in something. You could dump in something and kill it. There's lots of different things that you can do that allows you to do it. And so, for example, if you have a reputable hunter out, which is a 3/4, and they have a Sabine out, and you say, okay, well, you could either kill me or not kill me, whatever. I'm going to put a bounty on you, and if it attacks you and dies, you get the bounty. If you attack it and dies, you get the bounty. And then you get to play something from your hand less, which allows you to cheat out a few other cards. And we'll get to those cards in just a minute that allows you to cheat out. So now we talk a little bit about strategy. You have a few different types of cards in your deck. You have controlling your board cards is what I call them, which is your open fires, your force chokes, your overwhelming barrages. They're there to say, hey, hold on a second, stop what you're doing. I just want to wipe your board and not let you play the game. We also have ramp cards for a price on your head, super laser tech, and resupply. All those are great ramp cards. Against aggro decks, they don't work out super well. Against other decks, they work out very well. They allow you to get to Jabba's flip turn so much faster. Even one of those cards can be imperative in what you're going to steal when you come out. The cards you want to use as things to hold and capture is you have Mauls, Rancor, Jabba's Rancors, and you have Ruthless Raiders. All these come out on 6 or 7 resources. Even though Jabba's Rancor says 8, it actually with Jabba comes out on 7 resources. So a great play is if they've got a bunch of stuff that's set up on the other side of the board is you play Jabba's Rancor, do your 3 damage to him, do your 3 damage to something else, hopefully killing something else, and then you flip Jabba and steal one of their ready units or steal one of their big units, and they can't use loot to counter that, right? They can't use any of these weird little niche things to try to counter that because Jabba's just coming out and saying, screw you, I don't want your other unit to play the game. You also have what I call win more cards, where these cards are what help you stay in the game, late game, or help you just flat out win. Crate Dragons, we're taking a page from the opponent and we're playing Crate Dragons. They are super good and super amazing, and they are even better if you use them as your capture point, though it is a lot harder, I will admit, to get to the 9 resources and hold off your Jabba flip. But if you can, man, putting something underneath that Crate Dragon just feels so tasty. And these people do not like that. You also have your reinforcement walkers, which help you heal or draw cards. If you don't need the heal, it helps you draw your cards. If you need a heal, it allows you to get that 3 health without having to worry too much. And then we have what I would call a Relentless, which is your middle finger to control decks, saying you don't get to play your specific cards because of this. And I won't lie and say that I have played a Relentless, and the next turn play the Crate Dragon. Those are the only 2 units on the board, and they play a Power of the Dark Side. Well, guess what? It doesn't work unless you play something else. So you force them to burn some of their event cards to be able to keep stuff on the board. And even when they play that card with Relentless, they're playing it. It has no effect. You still get to do the damage with Crate Dragon. It is so good, and I can't wait for you to see what comes up in my turn 1 play. All right. So here we are. We got turn 1. This is what you kind of want to look for in your opening hands. You're looking for Reputa Hunters. You're looking for Kylo Silencer. You're looking for a Salacious Crumb or a Price on Your Head. The Reputa Hunter is one of the best turn 1 plays you can have. And that's because you can activate Jabba to give a bounty to something, even though you know you're not going to collect it. And you can play a 3-cost, 3/4 for 2 resources. And man, I'm telling you, if Sabine is out on the board, if they use their Fleet Lieutenant and go into this unit, they can kill it. But that's the only way they could just straight up kill this unit on turn 2. And that's why this unit is very important, because it can help you control your board. It's got a 3 body. It's got 4 health. It just says, hey, I'm here to stay. What do you want me to do? Kylo Silencer is great if you know you're going to have a matchup where they're going to go a lot of space. It's something you can mulligan for. It allows you to kind of like control that space on turn 1, so that way, even if they use their A-Wing or if they use whatever space unit they have to attack in, you can still kill it and take advantage of it. The one ship I would not recommend killing is the Inferno 4. Like, I don't know if it matters about killing that unless they're using that as super amazing damage against you, but really your Kylo Silencer can outpace that damage-wise, and that's why Kylo Silencer for 3/2 at a 2 resource cost is just such a good buy. You also have Salacious Crumb or Price on Your Head. Salacious Crumb is an okay alternative. It's not my favorite. I kind of put that up there. You could also put a Death Trooper down. If you have Crumb and a Death Trooper, that's actually a pretty decent combo, because you could swing in, kill something, use Crumb to do the extra damage. So somebody puts a Fighters for Freedom down, you could throw it. You could throw your Death Trooper in. You could pick your Salacious Crumb up, and then you can kill the Fighters for Freedom in 1 turn. So it's not the best, but it is a decent card that allows you to be able to ping that 1 damage that you possibly could need. Your Price on Your Head is an amazing card as well. It allows you to specifically go through and ramp. So if you know maybe you have a Timely Intervention in your hand, let's say, and some other cards, you're like, well, I know next turn I can kill it. I can ramp with this. I could put Jabba's bounty out on it, so I could play a unit for less. There's a lot of different things you can do with it. But it does hinder you a little bit because it is kind of predictable in what you're trying to do. Now, when they only have 1 unit on the board, whatever, you put it out, and if you get it, you get it turn 1. The next, we go into turn 2. Everything kind of starts to hinge on who you're playing against, right? So if you have, if you're playing against aggro decks where you need to stop things, you have some event cards that can help you. If you are looking to drop Sentinels because you have people that are trying to swing in, or if you need ramp. So your best cards are Open Fire and Force Choke. Even though they get a card, Force Choke is 5 damage to every ground unit, is just so good. I will be honest and tell you, if I'm playing against a Sabine, I save a Force Choke for whenever they open their Sabine up, and then I dump Force Choke into Sabine, killing her right away so she can't put that bloody dark saber on herself, because that is a pain in the butt. Open Fire, again, is good for like controlling air units. It can help you with ground units, but I like it a lot more for air units because I don't have a big presence. If I get Open Fire and Black the Black Star Sunfighter, if I'm turn 1, I'm probably playing the Starfighter to stop them from being able to swing in, but it's not always a guarantee. Same with the Phase 3 Dark Trooper. They're very good Sentinels. They are so much better than Cell Block Guards, but they still only had 3 health. So it doesn't matter what you do. Sometimes you just get a little unlucky and they got 3 damage coming in, but it does stop it from going to base, so it does help a little bit. If you're playing against control decks or some of these other decks that are they want to take your units off the board, they don't care about damage to base because their end game is just large cards at the end, ramp is the best option. Price on your head does not work against control decks very well because they're not playing units for you to kill. But the super laser tech is really good, especially if you have it with Salacious Crumb. You could play Salacious Crumb round 1, leave them down there. You put a super laser tech round 2, round 3. You can just pick up your Salacious Crumb and kill your super laser tech right away after it swings. It does a lot of different things that allows you to do cheeky little things with it. Now, if we talk a little bit and go on to kind of what is our turn 3 plays, this is kind of where it gets a little trickier, and this is where you got to assess your board, right? If you have a unit on the board or more than one unit, Overwhelming Barrage is your best play. Like, it's just like, boom, I can throw this down, basically, and kill something off. If you're playing against control and there's no units to kill, you can ramp. Ramping works very well with certain things. If you play a resupply turn 2, for example, you can ramp into the Overwhelming Barrage, or you can ramp into like a timely intervention with a Django Fed if you have both those in hand. Now, we're going to come back to that in a second because I think that's a weird combo that's kind of really cool that we figured out. But you also might have to do a little bit more control, or maybe need to play some units to kind of push your advantage. You could play Death Star Troopers. Salacious Crumb helps you heal. Phase 3 Dark Troopers, obviously that's like your Sentinel. Same thing with, you can play that Black Star with the Black Star. Sunfighter is also you're basically your Kirax. It's your Black Star Kirax. Reputable Hunters can come in for 2, as well as your Imperial Interceptors can come in and then just kill something in space. Now, if we come back and we were able to ramp turn 2, which gives us the extra resources to play the Overwhelming Barrages or the timely interventions in Django, it can be so good. So you can actually put a bounty on something with Jabba to be able to play something less. And the idea is you don't even care. What you care about is the fact that if you put a bounty on something and then you timely intervention and throw Django into that mix, he now, because he's attacking something with a bounty, he now gets Overwhelm and a +3, and if he defeats it, he gets a card. So think of it's a Fleet Lieutenant. Normally, you would be able to kill it anyway, but now you're doing the Overwhelm damage, so you're now doing 3 extra damage to base. Or if they have a Echo-based Defender, or a Highblend Enforcer, or a Pike Sentinel, you're now able to do that extra damage into base. You kill the unit, you still live, and you get to draw a card. Now, all of this hinges on you being able to ramp. If you're not able to ramp, then you're not able to play this till turn 4. And I won't lie and say that even on turn 4, this is very good. And I'll give an example. I hit turn 4, playing against a Blue Han. They put a Poe down, and they're like, oh, we're gonna put it down because I want to play 2 cards this turn. So they put a Poe down. They put the 2 damage on them. I then timely intervention Django out and just wipe it off the board. And yeah, I do lose my Django, but at the same token, I'm killing a Poe, which is nasty. I'm doing excess damage to the base, and I'm able to draw a card. So it kind of gives you a couple of different options to go about there. So now let's talk a little bit about our turn 4 through 6 play, as well as our in-game play. Our Jabba flip turn is when we get to capture a unit. So that's kind of important. Taking our leader out and overwhelming with big units is how we're going to finish the game. So it's kind of a toss-up. Again, it depends on the type of play you're playing against. But your Ruthless Raiders being able to come in and do 2 damage and then 2 damage to the base, and then just being there for Jabba's flip turn is so great. So if, depending on whether you ramped, will depend if you can get out early. But if you did, let's just pretend you did not ramp. On 6 resources, being able to drop that Ruthless Raider and then all of a sudden go, hey, look, folks, I've got a Ruthless Raider out. It's a whole lot harder unit to kill in space because it has 6 health. I can then flip Jabba, steal something, and put it specifically underneath that Ruthless Raider. Jabba's Rancor also comes out at 7, so a very good flip turn no matter whether you're ramping or not, a very good flip turn is to drop Jabba's Rancor, do the 3 damage to the opponent's unit, and then turn around and pull Jabba out and steal something. And I guess it's not really a steal, you're capturing it, right? But you're taking it and you're saying you can no longer play with this unit. It's now my unit. Against a Palpatine deck, for example, they were able to bring out and drop a Relentless for it. And here comes Jabba's Rancor. I do 3 damage to something else. I then turn around and Jabba captures the other unit because Jabba doesn't care whether it's space or not, right? Jabba only cares that the unit can be captured. And I think that's like the biggest thing here is how do you go about playing something that allows you to take powerful units and steal them so that way your opponent can't continue to play with them. So that is one of the better things about Jabba is he doesn't care about which arena you're in. He only cares about you stealing a card. And like if you don't have a higher end card, I won't lie and tell you Maul's probably not the best one. Maul's only at 6 health. A lot of times when Maul comes in and does the ambush, he's a little bit harder of a target. I won't lie and tell you that I have taken Maul, not ambushed him in, captured a unit the next turn, and then just, like it allows me to still have a little bit of presence. It's just not as good. Now, if you can hold off on your Jabba flip, holy crap, that's even better. Because then you can put a Crate Dragon, a Reinforcement Walker, a Relentless. Any of these are even better to put out there because they stop your opponents from doing other things. But really, your big goal is to drop a Rancor and then drop Maul that next turn to kind of keep that Rancor alive because Maul can then come in the next turn and take something off the board. And even if that means you don't get to use your Jabba, it's still there. Now, let's talk a little bit about Jabba and his flip turn, right? So when Jabba flips, Jabba can put a bounty on something. Jabba can then flip, put a second bounty on something, and then allow you to be cheeky and get a bigger discount on a unit. So for example, if you've got 7 resources, you could timely intervention, a Jango win, after Jabba has reduced something by 3 costs. Jango kills it. You have spent 5 resources out of your 7, but now you get it discounted down to 3. So now you have 5 resources to spend however you want to, because essentially whatever unit you play can come in cheaper. So it's a Han and Boba style way of cheating the system on resources. It's not as good, but it still does allow you to do things. And with Jabba having such a big butt, it allows him to do this again and again every single turn. Crate Dragons are there to stop them from playing other cards. Relentlesses are there to stop control games. And then Reinforcement Walkers are there to help you heal. So those, once you typically hit that turn, able to drop 1 or 2 of these in consecutive turns just allows you to, like, you're just throwing that damage. Like when that Walker swings, it's for 6. When that Relentless swings, it's for 8. When Crate Dragon swings, it's for 10. When Jabba's Rancor swings, it's for 9 plus 3 to any unit of your choice. And once Jabba's on the board, that's the other kitsch thing with the Jabba's Rancor. Jabba's 12 health. You got a boom, you're dropping a Rancor. It does the 3 damage to Jabba. It doesn't even have to absorb that damage. So as long as it doesn't have to absorb the damage, it stays out of everything but Fell's Dragon or the 6 cost defeat a unit, Rival's Fall. And those 2 it is acceptable for, but they are also wasting the majority of their resources that churn for it. Let's get into some strengths and weaknesses. Weaknesses. Milling is disastrous. You don't want to be milled. It's very hard to redraw cards. ECL hurts against, not having ECL hurts against like aggro decks, but that's why we have Timely in there. You could up it to 3 Timely. And what that would do is that would allow you to be able to ambush 1 more time. I found through testing that doing the extra Timelies weren't really beneficial. And it was probably just better to have only 2 of them because they didn't come in enough clutch during the games. You do not like bigger units in aggro, killing 2 units in a turn. I'll just pick on Wrecker. Wrecker can kill 2 units. It's really hard when Wrecker comes out if you're not prepared for it, because Wrecker can just destroy what board you have and allow you to not stabilize. Stabilizing on your flip turn can be can almost be too late if you don't have Sentinel. If they just went directly into your base, it can be really hard to stabilize when you only have 5 or 6 health left. And having no restocks can prevent control decks if you lose Rancor and stop the whole deck. So if somebody starts milling you and you don't have the restocks available, that could be a benefit. That can be hard. But since we haven't seen really heavy control style decks like that, you don't have to worry about it as much. The Pelp's Return are specifically in there for pillage decks, because pillage lets you choose what you're going to get rid of. You can get rid of something, keep your Pelp's Return and be able to play that in a turn or two. And that's kind of how I have avoided it. But that's why they're not main deck. Now, let's talk about some strengths, right? There's some good strengths of this deck. Jabba reduces the cost of units when played. That is amazing. That is the same thing that we get when we're doing Han, but now we're not taking any damage. We're just taking an action and we're a little bit slower. When your flip churn will help you stabilize extremely quickly, especially because once you get to that flip churn, because you're a red deck and you're running aggression, you're able to play some very heavy duty units. We talked a little bit before in our Palpatine red video about the Pelp unit. I don't feel in this deck it benefits you as much, but it could be something you could look towards putting in there if you need that secondary mini overwhelming barrage as well as a unit. Play is a little bit slower, but that allows you to gauge your opponent's plan and allows you to react a little bit differently, right? So it gives you the time to say, hold on, how are they developing their board? What do they want to do? And how can I counteract what they're putting on their thing? The best strength about this deck is it is super fun to play, especially if you like Jabba or any of these other like scummy type things from Star Wars. This deck is just so much fun to play. Like, it's fun to like be cheeky and be like, oh, I got to play a unit for less, or oh, I got Jabba's Rancor and I'm going to steal one of your units. It's just, the deck itself is so fun to play. Another strength, Jabba doesn't die very often. He does die. If he's the only unit on the board, he does die to power the dark side, but he doesn't die as often as you would think he would. And at 12 health, he could just be such a tank. And people have less desire to kill him because he only hits for 2. So if he attacks, it's like he's like whapping you with his little, I don't know, his weird arm, and slime gets on. You're like, I don't like that. But really, you don't care as much about the 2 attack. And for the most part, the Jabba giving the reduction is helpful, but it's not the best thing in the world because it is an action. It does slow your tempo down. But Jabba himself, just not being able to die, allows you to do all sorts of different things with him. And the last point is aggression cards are just off the charts amazing, and that's what makes this deck so bloody good. So now let's talk a little bit about game plan, and then we can kind of move to like a mulligan type thing. You have a couple different types of decks. Against aggro is your hardest matchup, period. Aggro is literally the hardest matchup you're going to face, and that's because they can go face so fast, it's going to be hard for you to be able to come back and kind of control that. I have not been able to figure out a way to aggressively tank aggro outside of being able to have having the timely interventions in hand and being able to ambush out units to kill their units before they go to your base. The Dark Saber on Sabine is just so hard. If you're playing against a Sabine, you always mulligan for a Force Choke. Just do it. You want that Force Choke. You want it to save it to hold Sabine. Very few Sabine decks run Pillage. Might be something they might start running, but I'd highly doubt it because it doesn't really fit with their game plan. So you don't have to worry as much about Pillage in that style of a deck. You just have to be careful because they can go to base so fast that you don't have a way to stop them. So you want Sentinels to stop them. You literally do not want to ramp unless they're not putting out units, which would not be a Sabine deck or a Boba deck or a Kylo deck. I will say Boba Yellow is a very hard matchup as well because they can bounce your units and then attack and get extra resources for doing it. So basically, like a Katina bouncer comes down for 5, you get the 1 resource back. You flip Boba, you do attack with Boba, you get 2 more resources. It could just get out of hand with some of these action sheety specific decks. Now we talk a little bit about mid range. You have a very good matchup in the mid range. Han being able to action cheat out a little bit faster than you can make it difficult. You can ramp though. So if they're looking to go to a higher game where they're just dropping heavier units, or they're looking to be able to drop out their U-wing reinforcement, you can feel safe in ramp because you're going to only be spending the 1 card a turn. It allows you to, then hold your extra cards in hand. Old Man Han is scary, but as long as you can stop the DJ tech combo, usually you're fine. That's where Scanning Officer comes into play. You sit down against a Yellow Han, you're like, I'm going to put Scanning Officer in because guess what? I'm going to kill their resources, especially if you have, you go into your second game and you get initiative. You can just put those Scanning Officers and mull as hard as you want for those and pick it up, and then it stops their turn 1 play. Scanning Officer can just kill that specific deck if played correctly. You then have Rays or Han 2s, can be also mid-range decks, as well as like a Vader Green. These ones you're kind of looking, if they're spamming units, you have to counteract them. If they're ramping, you could just ramp right along with them. I typically like to have a mixture in my hand. If I pull an Overwhelming Barrage, I hold it till at least turn 3 to decide if I need it or not. And then typically by turn 3, if they've been ramping and I've been ramping, I don't need Overwhelming Barrage. I'll just pop that into my resource row and keep one of the other amazing cards that come up. Especially if they're doing is ramping to try to get to that 7 resource churn or 6 resource churn with Rey, it's not that bad. And because they're not putting damage into your base, essentially you're going to talk about where your top ends hit, and your top end hits at least as hard as theirs, if not harder. And again, that's what the Devastators in the sideboard are. You can flip out and move the Devastators in and get rid of the Relentlesses if needed, to help kind of stop some of that when they try to ramp harder than you. But mid-range decks are typically your sweet spot. You usually don't have as big of an issue with mid-range decks as you do with aggro decks. The last one we got to talk about is control decks. Vader fits into that. It's a Vader blue, Iden blue, Iden green, Kira green, I guess Krennic green. You have Hondo, which is mainly Hondo blue. All of these control decks can stop your play, and you just have to be smarter. Either you have to put a lot more smaller units down to spam them, or what you have to do is just ramp. And if you can ramp faster than them, you have the ability to put bigger units down, and they don't have a counteract it. Again, we'll pick on Hondo blue. They can pull out their Chilson, and yeah, they've got a Sentinel there. But man, you just drop that Jabba's Rancor, you drop the 3 damage on it when you play it, you could steal their Chilson, and it's just not as big of a deal. Why is Pelp good? Well, Pelp's bloody good because Pelp steals units. Why is Jabba good? Jabba's good because he captures and steals units. Just makes it so much better. And against hard control, your goal is to ramp, let them mill as needed, and then just once you hit that like turn 6-ish, you're able to start putting out 2 or 3 smaller units. You can stop resourcing once you're able to put your Crate Dragon out or your Relentless. And again, that's what Relentless is for. I play in a very heavy aggro meta. Alex, my co-host, plays in a very heavy control meta. Hence why we kind of came to the Relentless is one of the better options for this deck. But those are kind of your game plans, different lines of play that you can take with this. All right. Now we can kind of get into, we talked about what the sideboard is. We talked about what your game plans are. What do we do if we draw these cards? So we're going to go ahead and draw 6 cards. As you can see here, we got a Relentless, a Walker, a Timely Intervention, a Salacious Crumb, and a Jango. So we talked about these being a great combo. It depends on what type of deck you're going against. If you're going against an aggro deck, this is a bad hand. If you're going against a control deck, this is an okay hand. If you're going against a mid-range deck, this is a great hand because you could just take the Relentless and you could take the Walker and you could put them specifically down. So here we go. Now we have a turn 1 play. We have this Reputable Hunter. We have Price on Your Head. We have all these other different things. This is a hand you would keep. What I would do is I would take the Maul, and that, unfortunately, Maul right there is something that you would resource. And then really it kind of depends, you know, like if you don't need the space presence because you don't feel they're going to have a lot of space, I would go ahead and put this in my resource row. If you think that you're going to not need ramp, I would put the Price on Your Head in the resource row. Again, all of these can be kind of done, you know, that if we draw 2 more, now look, now we've got a phase 3 Dark Trooper, and we got a Death Star Trooper. So depending on what we so if we resources Black Sun and Maul, and we don't, then this turn goes, okay, well, do we need to control their board or not control their board? Well, if I don't need to control their board, I'm going to resource the Open Fire and keep these 2, because then it gives me the option to have Sentinel or not. We draw 2 more cards, and now we're into turn 3 with an Overwhelming Barrage and a Salacious Crumb. We now can hold on to these, and it allows us to essentially be able to wipe their board if they're not taking actions. Well, I hope that's kind of helped you. This has been a fun deck for me. I've been playing this deck for the most part for the last month and a half, on and off. It's what I use to kind of cleanse my palate of having to play Palpatine all the time or playing a lot of Kira. This is kind of a good palate cleanser for me, and I found that this deck has done very well against everything, but for the most part, aggro. So I think if you have improvements, you want to like offer some advice. If you have other things, you're like, hey, I think this fits in here better, or I like this in here better, or why are you not running Vaders? I'm not running Vader because it costs, you know, $60 a unit to buy, and because I like Maul in this style of a deck a lot better because I don't care as much about pulling my smaller drops out at the end of the day. I prefer my Ambush and my Overwhelm to help control their side of the board. But Vader could be a good sideboard card or could be a good replacement card depending on how your playstyle is. So hit me up in the comments. Let me know why you liked the video. Let me know what your suggestions are to change it. And stay tuned because we got even more deck techs coming here in the near future.